Hello and welcome to the Walt Whitman Show. Welcome to Cork in Ireland. Welcome to my kitchen. Mountain Drummer, very welcome. Leonard, Mark, Jay Fehley. I don't know all of your first names, but you're very welcome. M. Gage, thank you for inviting people. Yes, so this is the Walt Whitman Show, and contrary to some people's view, I'm not Walt Whitman. This is what Walt Whitman looks like, or what he looked like shortly before his death in 1892. Hello! And Walt Whitman wrote a collection of poems called Leaves of Grass and kept adding to it throughout his lifetime. So he first published this in 1855, and he was adding poems to it throughout his life. He also chopped and changed the order of the poems, and the book of poems went through many editions. And I'm going to be using and reading to you, and you're all very welcome for this, what's called a deathbed edition, the last one he edited before he died. And you see all those pages are the entire kind of collected works of Walt Whitman as he wanted them presented before he died. And we on the Walt Whitman Show are reading and appreciating the whole of the poetic oeuvre, all of the poetic work of Walt Whitman. So it's a biggish project. It's been going on for months. And you wish you didn't have a poetry slam tonight. Oh, well, it's really interesting to hear that you have a poetry slam. I'll have to remember to check out your profile and to get to know you a bit better, because that's a really interesting thing to do. Well, and you can hear this program, this show, this experience is being recorded, so that it can be played back on Catch. And to those of you watching on the internet, welcome. And to those of you watching on replay, welcome. And to those of you who are used to seeing me here, you will notice that I am indeed wearing a dressing gown. I want to get this in before anybody else says, Paul, you're wearing a dressing gown. Mark Fraz from Chicago. Anne, hello. Monday, Tuesdays, hello. Brooke, hello. Lars, you're great. Jackson in Adelaide. You know, the marvelous thing about the Walt Whitman Show, no, you just missed, I don't know what you missed, Jackson. You certainly haven't missed anything I can remember, except the arrival of people, you know. Susan, welcome. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I've woken up for the show. I didn't sleep very well. In fact, I slept lousily last night, and so I finally hit the wall and had about 3 hours of recovering. So I'm well now, and I'm here now with my new favorite. He'll be watching the show. I've asked him to stay quiet during the show. Yeah, kind of a nap, yeah. I've asked him not to disturb me during the show and not to distract from what's going on. So he's promised me that he'll stay in the background. Won't you, Paddington? Yes, you will. Good. And I've given you a jar of honey. Yes. Lars is very welcome to be here. Thank you very, very much. We're going to start a new poem tonight. The usual what happens on the Walt Whitman Show is that it's like a dinner party. You come in, you settle down, you look around the table, you see who's here, you say hello to people. You might say hello to somebody who you do know at the party already, but there's a period of settling in, and you basically are just practicing the art of being a decent human being, and wanting to be sure is Paddy your sleepy time friend? Whoa, the idea that you'd let somebody into your house who you hate. Lars, only saints do that. Only saints let people they hate into their house. But anyway, so I'm going to read you some Walt Whitman, and I'm then going to read it again. So we're going to have, I'm a strong believer. I'm just getting this space organized now while we're talking to you. I should. This is just behind the scenes. I have to pile a few books up here on the computer so as to raise the. This is La Russe Gastronomique for those of you into cooking. Not usually my, Wednesday night cookery book. Pile a few books on top just to balance the, and I think we're ready. Yeah, I think it's certainly valuable. Could we agree that it's valuable? Now, could I just do a sound check, because I got very, very uncomfortable last night. Can you hear me okay if I speak at this pitch, or do I need to be closer in order to... Yes, you did see Mary Oliver. Yes, you did see Mary Oliver. And some of you might know, some of you do know, that Mary Oliver is my favorite living poet. Okay. This poem, Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking, is one of Whitman's better known poems. I don't know it. I'm not a professor, by the way. I don't teach English. Nothing like that. I'm just a common garden enthusiast. It's in a collection of poems called Seadrift. Seadrift, and I can only guess that the collection of poems within Leaves of Grass, called Seadrift, is actually something about the sea and boats and sand and sandcastles and ice cream, and so we'll have to see what Whitman has to say in Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking. And oh, Jackson, thank you for inviting. Jackson's followers must all be big lovers of true Australian poetry. And in case I forget, I'd like to wish Jackson a very, very good summer and a very good break from the internet, because Jackson is in Australia and they have their summer holidays at the wrong time, and he's going off on Ellen. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Katie. Okay, no more ado. Crack on with the poetry. Stop all the chatter, Paul. Get your mouth working on Walt Whitman. So, here we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we will forget you, Jackson. We won't remember your name. No, we definitely... Either that or we'll talk about you all the time while you're away, so we can have a really good gossip about what you're really like. So we'll either completely forget you, or will be obsessed about you, you know, or you will forget how to type. Okay guys, off we go. We've got Paddington Bear out here. What are we talking? I'm not talking about you, Kate, for once. Just for once in my life, I'm not talking about Kate. Right? So, okay, here we go. This poem, Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking, is different. One of the differences from a huge amount of Whitman poetry, one of the differences is that there are no, it isn't broken into sections with numbers on it. So, you know, for as far back as I can remember in reading Whitman poetry, each of the sections have got numbers. So we'll just have to kind of arbitrarily stop where it feels right to stop. So no more chat, on we go. Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking by Walt Whitman. Out of the cradle, endlessly rocking, out of the mockingbird's throat, the musical shuttle, out of the 9th month midnight, over the sterile sands and the fields beyond, where the child, leaving his bed, wandered alone, bare-headed, barefoot, down from the showered halo, or hallow, up from the mystic play of shadows, twining and twisting as if they were alive, out of the patches of briars and blackberries, from the memories of the bird that chanted me, from your memories, sad brother, from the fitful risings and fallings I heard, from under the yellow half-moon, late risen and swollen as if with tears, from those beginning notes of yearning and love, there in the mist, from the 1,000 responses of my heart, never to cease, from the myriad thence aroused words, from the words stronger and more delicious than any, from such as now they start the scene revisiting, as a flock twittering, rising, or overhead passing, borne hither, ere all eludes me, hurriedly, a man, yet by these tears a little boy again, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves, I, chanter of pains and joys, uniter of here and hereafter, taking all hints to use them, but swiftly leaping beyond them, a reminiscence sing. I have to stop there. I have to stop there because that is the introduction of the poem. And before we go any further, this is where we're starting. Out of the cradle, endlessly rocking. So what do you think of that for a beginning, Keith? What do you think of that for a beginning of a poem? I have my own reaction to it. Old Killoa loved it. I guess Susan's Hearts means that Mark Fraz from Chicago, Mark Frazzle says, strong, beautiful music. Birth. David, Party World in Waterford. It left you wanting more, yes. Jenny inspired from Seattle. Welcome, Jenny. You like it? Reminiscent, yeah? I mean, a reminiscence song is the last line. Yeah. Well, I must tell you, I haven't read the poem before. And for me, it's one of the most beautiful beginnings of any of Whitman's poems that I can remember reading. I just absolutely loved it. It just felt more lyrical, more harmonious. It flowed more fluidly than many parts. I just love it. And I'm going to read it again. To me, this is, it spoke to me, you know, this got to me. And especially when it got to the sand. Are you going for a record? This is not a jumper, Simon. You should come a little earlier to the show, right? I have already introduced my dressing gown, right? This is not a smoking jacket, right? Not a smoking jacket. But, you know, I suppose I should have put, you know, a sign up here saying, you know, Paul wearing a dressing gown tonight. Okay, here we go again. Here we go again, guys. Walt Whitman, the beginning of Out of the Cradle, endlessly rocking. You know, a poem of Whitman's which is relatively well known. Out of the cradle, endlessly rocking, out of the mockingbird's throat, the musical shuttle, out of the 9th month midnight, over the sterile sands and the fields below, where the child leaving his bed wandered alone, bareheaded, barefooted, or barefoot, down from the shower hello, up from the mystic play of shadows, twining and twisting as if they were alive, out of the patches of briars and blackberries, from the memories of the bird that chanted to me, from your memories, sad brother, from the fitful risings and fallings I heard, from under the yellow half-moon, late risen and swollen as if with tears, from those beginnings, notes of yearning and love, there in the mist, from the 1,000 responses of my heart, never to cease, from the myriad thence aroused words, from the word stronger and more delicious than any, from such as now they start the scene revisiting, as a flock, twittering, rising, or overhead passing, borne hither, ere all eludes me, hurriedly, a man yet by these tears, a little boy again, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves, I, chanter of pains and joys, uniter of here and hereafter, taking all hints to use them, but swiftly leaping beyond them, a reminiscence sing. A man, yet by these tears a little boy again. What a familiar feeling. What a resonance. I speak for myself now. a man, yet by these tears a little boy again. I mean, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves. I mean, I love that. Such a cliffhanger. Simon, you are a gem. That's a good one. Confronting the waves. I, chanter of pains and joys. Now, chanter of pains and joys, that is Whitman all over. You know, he does not confine himself to the joys. He does not confine himself to the pains. You noticed my face light up, Christine, you did. Uniter of here and hereafter. I mean, what a brilliant summary of himself and of what he has been doing. Uniter of here and hereafter. I mean, for me, anyway, those few lines are, and I got my pen while I was in the middle of reading, and I marked in the margin of the book, you know, and I'm now putting 3 ticks in the margin of the book, which is my way of saying this is the top quality stuff as far as I'm concerned. I'm a little perplexed by, well, first of all, I don't know when it was written. Chris, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I don't know, and unless Andrew is here and can tell us when Uniter of here and the virtual. Yeah. Oh, I see. Dale, Madzub. Where is our Tarlia? But who is the person who has Google available to them? If anybody has Google, and there must be people here who can lay their hands on Google very quickly. Good question. I don't know. Oh, is Eric Schmidt here? Oh, wonderful. Simon, I had no idea Eric Schmidt was here. Wow. Imagine having the Eric Schmidt here. Simon, how did you notice him? Wow. You have goggle eyes. Has anybody got goggle eyes? Just check Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking. Yep. The man who they resisted for many years. No, joking. It was playing with 1859. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anne. Very good to know. Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking. Now, I'm very happy to read more of the poem. I'm very happy to read more, or if you would like, could easily read another piece, because it is going to take us about, you don't think it could take any more? It was so good. Yeah, I kind of could read that piece again. I think it's going to take us about 4 days. Well, no, it won't take 4 days. Yeah. But it could easily take. Andrew, hello, we've just been talking about you. Yeah, it could easily take us 4 days to read this poem. And in fact, I'm going to read it again, especially for Andrew, because of, Andrew is one of the stars, I guess I have to say, of the Walt Whitman show. Plogs, right. Would anybody like to explain what, I'll tell you what it is. Plogs is periscope leaves of grass. Periscope leaves of grass. We are plogs. I even have a Twitter list called Plogs. Periscope leaves of grass. It hasn't been mentioned very often recently, but it was one of those. Andrew has footnotes. Excellent. Yeah, Plogs. Are you on the list? I don't remember. Simon, maybe you're not on the list. Maybe the list was formed before you were. Leaves of grass. The Whitman's life's work is published under the title Leaves of Grass. Oh, you get personal service, Simon, ever since you asked for it. As you know, if you ask for personal service, you get it. Excuse me now while I try and give myself a little bit more clogs. Oh, I like that. I will add you. I will add you to the Twitter group. I will. Very pleased to do that. I have 2 Twitter groups related, 2 or 3 Twitter group lists on Periscope. I have Plogs. I have Periscope Contacts, which is very much... Lars has more than delusions of grandeur. Lars has delusions, full stop. Lars believes that he exists. I mean, we all know Lars to be a figment of our imagination, but Lars actually believes he exists, so he's definitely a deluded as well as delusional. Hang on, Seadrift, 11 poems compiled in 1881, 7 of which were part of a group called Seashore Memories. Yes, Andrew, we've discovered that we've been told by Anne, I'm sure she's right, that Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking was written in 1859. Ah, you're doing exams in University College Cork. Well, good for you. All the best with the exams. I'm presuming that Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking was first published in the 1860 edition. The 3rd edition. Yeah, right. Yes. You have to love and leave me, Paul. Simon, they're memorable. Let me just... a man, yet by these tears, a little boy again. Yeah. London, and that wonderful view you have in London. Oh, I just love that view. It actually reminded me of Chicago in a funny way, because you were up high in a building looking out. And that's one of the things I remember Chicago for. Anyway, Simon, all the best. All the best, and all the best to Jana. Does Whitman often reflect on the past? Often is the tricky word. Oh, Jana's in the pub, right? Drink on, Jana. Does he often reflect on the past? I would have thought he was less reflective on the past than the average poet. But I'm not sure about that. You see, I think he is always thinking of the future. Jenny, bye-bye, bye-bye. This was first published as a child's reminiscence on the 24th of December. Imagine publishing a poem, on the 24th of December. Is P Paul by any chance? Paul Rogers, or is it another name? Yeah, well, Jenny, what is it? It's 8 hours. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Seattle, I think. Perry, okay. I can tell you, Paddington Bear loved, 326, Oh, you're going to have the Ostrich Egg Cup, Lars. That sounds good. Paddington Bear loved the beginning of Out of the Cradle, endlessly rocking, especially the line, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves. Absolutely, Paddington got off on that. Yeah. Well, you're going to the grocery shop to check out your work stuff. I see. You work in a grocery shop. Whitman defended shortly afterwards the criticism that the poem was meaningless. But of course, diddle-dee-dee potatoes. Diddle-dee potatoes. I know Pacific time, I know, yes. I don't know anyone who reads Neruda. If somebody read Neruda on Periscope and I hadn't found it by now, I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled because it would be ahead of me. Sorry guys, I'm just, what are we talking about? Well, they're trolling with these. We're talking about poetry. This is the Walt Whitman show. Walt Whitman is looking for Brooke is going to start a poetry show. Jacques Schnitt? No, I don't know Jacques Schnitt. No, oh no, shit, Jack shit. No, but I wonder if that was, are you teasing me? Brooke, do you mind me asking what kind of a poetry show you have in mind? Any particular kind? Will you read your own? Will you read other people's? You might read some Neruda. Is that teasing us and some of your own, right? Are you teasing us by saying you might read some Neruda? You will read some Neruda. The enrichment. Do I know Patterson? I do. I could tell you some funny stories about Banjo Patterson. Banjo Patterson is known to every person on this scope, although they might never have read a poem by him. Criticism from the Cincinnati Daily 4 days later. Banjo Paterson is maybe the most, in one sense, the most famous Australian who nobody knows much about. He wrote Waltzing Matilda. The lyrics for Waltzing Matilda were written by Banjo Paterson, who's a poet I hugely admire. I think I've read all of the poetry of Banjo Paterson. And I once met a relative of Banjo Paterson and had dinner with a relative of Banjo Paterson. You might be interested in that. They'd know if they watched. Right. Yeah. I'd like to know, I'd love Brooke to, when you're ready, Brooke, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love you to say what kind of a poetry show you're going to have. Is it eclectic? And you're going to do whatever you feel like on the day, or are you going to focus primarily on your own work? Or are you going to, Old Killoa, are you going to pick, one or more particular poets? Great, that's lovely, that'll mean there'll be variety. That's lovely. Taxes are ready. Oh, you've done your tax return. Oh, that's a bit of a relief. In case you're wondering, I'm eating sunflower seeds and some other, sunflower seeds, and something else I should remember. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember what this one is. They give me protein. I'm meant to take protein about every 3 hours. No, they're not. They're not chia. There's something much more common. I'll tell you what they are. Oh yeah. Sorry, they're pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. And I also have cashew nuts here. I'm going to read out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking Again. Since my daughter became a vegetarian, I've more or less entirely given up beef at home. Okay. Yeah, my daughter came back from France in the summer. Excuse me. This one is specially... George, are you here? Hello. This is specially for Susan, this one, okay? Yeah, all right, so we have even more things in common, Susan. Yeah. I used to think like that, Lars. I have to admit, I used to think like that. Oh, a good one, a good sized one. Vegetarian since you were 13. Let me read you some vegetarian poetry, okay? Are you ready for some vegetarian poetry? Here we go. It's called Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking by Walt Whitman. Out of the cradle, endlessly rocking, out of the mockingbird's throat, the musical shuttle, out of the 9th month midnight, over the sterile sands and the fields below, where the child, leaving his bed, wandered alone, bareheaded, barefoot, down from the showered halo, up from the mystic play of shadows, twining and twisting as if they were alive, out from the patches of briars and blackberries, from the memories of the bird that chanted to me, from your memories, sad brother, from the fitful risings and fallings I heard, from under that yellow half moon, late risen and swollen as if with tears, from those beginning notes of yearning and love there in the mist, from the 1,000 responses of my heart never to cease, from the myriad thence aroused words, from the words stronger and more delicious than any, from such as now they start the scene revisiting, as a flock twittering, rising or overhead passing, borne hither ere all eludes me hurriedly, a man yet by these tears a little boy again, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves, I, chanter of pains and joys, uniter of here and hereafter, taking all hints to use them, but swiftly leaping beyond them, a reminiscence song, a reminiscence sing. Swiftly leaping beyond them. That is a brilliant four words in my mind. Swiftly leaping beyond them. Which is, I think, what Whitman tries to do time and time again. Could I just ask if there's anybody here for whom this is the first time you've come to the Walt Whitman show? Is there anyone for whom it's the very first time? I don't want to put you on the spot. Looking for Brooke, right. Looking for Brooke. Well, Brooke, special thanks for coming. Gina Solberg, hello. It's very good to meet you. I think you already know Jackson. Susan deliberately didn't feed any of her children meat. The poor creatures got anemic. It's, thank you, George. Okay, Mark is out. Yeah, I think I just want to, in case you think I'm not echoing the same thing, Brooke, I'm really looking forward to your poetry show. You're a high school English teacher, Jenna Solberg. Great. Well, are you a high school English teacher in the United States? Are you in, well, I'm guessing high school means United States. And I think, it's not that I think, I know there are a few other teachers here as well. San Antonio in Texas, right. San Antonio in Texas. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much for coming. I think we met. I think I said hello to you in another scope. Perhaps not. Perhaps I made a mistake. Perhaps my memory is. Good. Yeah. I think another cashew nut is in order. What do they call high school elsewhere? Well, in Ireland we call them secondary schools. You want me to read my new poem, Lars, yeah? Secondary school in Waterford, secondary school in Cork. Lars is lobbying me to read a poem which I wrote today. Would anybody like to hear it besides Lars? You'll pay me $15 to read it. Aha. Your thalassemy. I'm not sure what thalassemy means. So Lars is paying me. I'm being sponsored. Here is a sponsored poem. A poem sponsored by Lars. Requested by him. Okay. I'm going to read you this poem. This is the poem I'm going to read to you now. And it was written in a cafe today. And this is the first draft. And the poem is called Strangle Bukowski. Strangle Bukowski. I should say, because it might help people, that Charles Bukowski is an American writer who is dead now. And Charles Bukowski lived on the west coast of America. I mean, I'm not sure that he lived there all of his life, but he certainly, in the period of his life when he became well known. Okay, so the poem is called Strangle Bukowski. Will someone please strangle Bukowski? Bukowski is a disgraceful man, not worthy of the name Charles. He farts his syllables, belches his words, vomits his phrases. His sentences smell like festering fish. As for his verse, it's worse. When did Mukowski last rhyme? When did he not spew out his truth as if it was personal? If Caustic Charlie didn't drink from sour milk, sucked from his mother nature, the inhuman race would have no warlike bastards inciting us to spill blood from eruptive orifices. Pastiching the barely sane, Bukowski keeps my bad breath moving mindfully in and out through gaps between teeth filled originally by a dumb dentist married to his drill, addicted to screwing holes he amalgamed. Father, Father, who will rid me of this treacherous gurgitator of sound from that inner being Steve Jobs tried to canvas? Through that inner being Steve Jobs tried to connect with on his ashram in smelly feet. See, pastiche is the sincerest form of flattery. Will someone please strangle Bukowski? That is the poem Strangle Bukowski. First draft. Socios Barand, yeah. You think he would have been proud? Beautiful, Lars. Yeah, it's clappity, clippity, clappity, clippity. You got a great laugh out of it. Yeah, you were meant to get a great laugh out of it, Susan. That's really good. I'm very glad. It's pungent. I like that. Oh, that's a good word. That's a good word, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you. Pungent, yeah. Caustic Charlie, yeah. I guess Bukowski has been, working his way inside me for some weeks now. You don't want to go to the dentist. Yeah, that's the personal part of the poem, because I, as a child, had a dentist who ruined my teeth. So, and there's a long story. Bye-bye, Christine. Bye-bye, if you're going. Anesthesia. You have an appointment next week. Oh, right. So yeah, the poem is a pastiche. It's written tongue-in-cheek in the style of Bukowski. Or not really in the style of Bukowski, but sort of, there's a Bukowskian feel to it. Especially if Bukowski is your dentist, yeah. Many dentists remind you of snake oil salesmen, hard to find a trustworthy one, yeah. Lars, you would know Bukowski's poetry recently because we've been sharing it. So now neither of us would be experts. Bye-bye, David. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Until you lose a few dentists. Have you lost a few dentists, Susan? I suppose over your lifetime you would have lost a few. Yeah. Oh. All right. I couldn't resist that one. There may be people here who have never actually read any Bukowski, and I would hold my hand up and say that a year ago I hadn't read any Bukowski. And the only reason I got interested in Bukowski is that a good friend of mine read my big poem, the Irish epic poem in 33 cantos, and said that it reminded him of Bukowski and Hunter S. Thompson. And since I hadn't heard of either of them, I thought it was I better acquaint myself with Hunter S. Thompson and Bukowski, since my epic poem was being When I Know About a Fight, All Weapons Pointed at You. Yeah, I realize now, Jackson, that it was very flattering to be joy, cheerio, bye-bye. You love my angry side when it's in writing, don't want it going for you. Yeah. Never have, although he is local to you. Right. You've never read Hunter S, or you've never read Bukowski, or like me, you've never read either of them. I still haven't read Hunter S. Thompson, really. I've read little bits, and I've read the kind of basic entry on Wikipedia. So that's my entire, but I know enough about both of them to know that, yeah, I read him after you told me of the poetry app, yeah. You're not leaving forever. Joy Christine, you're not leaving forever. I mean, you have the collected letters of both of them. Wow. Oh. Look, would you two please conduct your lovers' tiffs in the next room, please? Since I fancy both of you, I don't really like, yeah, look up Hunter S. Definitely look up Hunter S. Yeah, just conduct your Bukowski is called Screams from the Balcony. Mark Gellin from the United Kingdom, welcome. And Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is, I think, his first major breakthrough. I mean, he was sent to Los Angeles, he was sent to Las Vegas in order to cover a boxing match, I think. And he ended up staying there for, oh, maybe it's Hunter S. Thompson. Maybe I'm getting Hunter S. mixed up with Bukowski. But I remember reading about it. Oh, Jackson, you're so much better versed, as is Hell's Angels, right? Yeah. So, hello, Michael. Hello, Michael in Rome. You're very welcome. Lovely to see you. Really nice to see you. You recognize the onomatopoeias today of the word gallop and waddle. Oh, you devoured Hunter S. and Bukowski. Right. Well, I must introduce you to Chris Brogan then, since the two of you are really turned on by those two people at one stage in your life, because the person who told me that my writings reminded him of those two people is a guy called Chris Brogan, who lives just north of Boston in the United States, and is a very successful, well, he's a very fine author of mainly business books, and a great speaker and a runner of training courses. Will you just excuse me 1 second? There's something I want to do. I'll be back in just a minute, Gina. I just have to get something out of the cupboard. I'll be back in a second. You didn't disrupt anything, Joy, as you know, and you know that you're not permitted to apologize on this show. There are no apologies permitted on the Walt Whitman show. Well, we can't talk about Bukowski without having alcohol in the room. I mean, those of you who know anything about Bukowski would know that he was drunk most of the time. So this is a local egg cup from our local egg supplier. Lars, don't drink whiskey this late at night before trying to go to sleep. No. No, don't. No. Right drunk, edit sober. Yeah, that's actually, there's a wonderful blog post. Oh, that's true. There's a wonderful blog post about writers' habits with alcohol, written by, you thought gin was whiskey. Oh, Susan, you see, you're such fun when it comes to alcohol, you know. Now here we go. It's just, yeah, this is Hendrix. Yeah, it's I like Hendrix, I must say. It's not my favorite, but made from whiskey leftovers. Farida, hello and welcome. Welcome. So look, here is to Bukowski. Here's to Charles Bukowski, to one of the true free writers who was not afraid to offend people. To Charles, or to Charlie. Farida, I'm guessing it's dark. Bye-bye. I keep forgetting Monday, Tuesdays. I keep forgetting that you're Jackie. I mean, I really have to. Romantic Night has entered. My liege, namista, my liege. Yes, we now have a true heraldic warrior who's entered. The time here is about 5 to 12. 5 to 12, just before the bewitching hour. We have a heraldic warrior just entered, and that is Romantic Night. Yes, with woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow, he entered. Yeah, it takes me a while, Jackson, it really does. Eventually it works, but like a lot of things, I need a good deal of practice before I am able to do anything. So I think we probably have half a dozen people here at the moment who have written verse. Aha, most nights are romantic. I like that. I love that. That would be could be a fun beginning to a poem. Your subject's good seeing you. Oh, yes. You've written some poetry. Let's see how many people are here. Lars has written poetry, so that's Michael and Lars. That's 2 people have written poetry. I've written poetry, that's 3. You can write a haiku in a tweet very easily. I've written quite a few. Yeah, Jackson has. I'm going to lose track of the number. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 we have on the scope. I know that Susan, or was it Joy, who has poetry. Right, so there, Gina writes poetry. Imadzu writes songs. Yep. So, we've got to be careful about songs. Some songwriters are poets, and look at this, the 6th great-granddaughter to the Duke of Lincolnshire. The Duke of Lincolnshire, right? That'll set off Romantic Night and Susan Toba having a good conversation with each other. And Susan has written poetry. So I think it's fair to say that a goodly proportion of people. How do we classify poetry? You wrote a few lines of thought. Is that poetry? If you didn't go to the end of the line, Susan, or Farida, and if you kept your poem like in the middle of the page, and if you got to the end of the line, it's almost certainly prose. But if you kept it in the middle of the page, I think it's a very strong candidate for poetry. See, poets are usually more economical than prose writers, so they don't stretch the lines of their poetry across as far as prose writers. By the way, I have to stress that you were wondering if you could read some of your followers' poetry. Kathy, I could do better than that, I think, in that I publish the work of people who I have come to know via the Walt Whitman show. I have a blog Oh, and somebody asked me for the name of the blog. I have a blog on which, yes, prose poetry is a special exception to every rule. Yes, Lars has given it. Lars has given it. This is the link, if you like. Yes. Although I have to tell you that if you were no. Sorry, Jackson. There's no E in my name. I'd be very grateful if you could. Across, right. Some people write every second letter is from a poem and the other letter is from prose. So some people, I mean, it's a very tricky thing to do. That's right. So just to have, to get the letters right, so that you have poetry and prose mixed within the same word. That's pretty advanced stuff, Then again, there are some pretty advanced people. Short stories, I think, are incredibly difficult. Two things I think are terribly difficult to do well. One are children's stories and the other are short stories. It's visual as well then, not just the content. Oh, it's the whole McCoy. It's the whole thing. You tried it and got sir could not be found. How long is the... Well, I only began writing poetry in 1995 on the 11th of June, 1995. Lars, I think that's very cheeky. I am going to expose you to some of my haikus. I'm going to expose you to my haikus, and it'll be full frontal self-exposure, Lars. Yeah. I will not be... Why do I know the date? Because I know exactly where I was when I started writing my first poem ever. Does Ireland know? You want to see the Bible haikus? Yeah. Yeah, the Bible haikus. I will send Jackson the Bible haikus. Oh, it would be easy to get you to love haiku. I just have to send you some of Basho's work. Would I be drinking a wee dram and let you refill it? Actually, it would be... I've never had... You put your finger on something very important. I've never had gin and whiskey mixed. I've had whiskey and port mixed, but I've never had whiskey and gin mixed, and I love whiskey and port. I'm writing down send... do I believe... I'm not even sure what the word begotten is really. Interesting question. Really interesting question. I suppose let me put it this way. I grew up, I was educated and I grew up in a Roman Catholic family. I've got to send Jackson the Bible in haiku. The Bible in haiku, Jackson, was written in 575. Yeah, it's all 575. and the Samson. Farida, I will do that too. Just writing it down. You just remind me, it depends on which gospel and which translation of which gospel you're talking about. It certainly doesn't say that on the introduction, and in fact it doesn't say it in the Old Testament at all. There's no reference in Genesis at all, and even Leviticus doesn't have any reference to that, and the laws concerning chastity, there's no reference there either, and the Songs of Solomon don't mention it, and the Gnostic Gospels are definitely worth a read. Yeah, they are. There's also, I believe, the Gospel according to Judas. Can't even remember if I read that. Whenever you get around to talking about the Gnostic Gospels, or the Gnostic Gospels, I remember that one of the most remarkable places I ever went to in my life was Masada. Masada is overlooking the Dead Sea in Israel, and it was one of the most remarkable places I ever went to in my life. Looking down from quite a height and remembering what happened in Masada. I don't want to it's too late to go into that now, but just when we go into biblical times, it stirs a lot of memories. And just actually to ramble on a tiny bit more, one of the most moving places I ever went to in my life is the wall in what's known as the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. I found that one of the most moving places I've ever been to. Oh, I think it's worthwhile reading the Bible. I'd certainly go back and read the James Bible. I think that's in English. Mind you probably want to read it in Danish. Sanwar, good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome. I had no problems, but it's a long time ago, and I sat at Jaffa Gate for about 6 hours before I started taking photographs. I just sat on the ground at Jaffa Gate. I don't know if you know Jerusalem, but guys, I'm going to have to go because I can't stay. My haiku of the Bible, it is actually written. Well, I'll find it. It isn't quite as easy as that to find it because, but I think I know where I can find it. Exactly how many opinions you get from the Whitman poem. Look, can I thank you all very much? Thank you, Farley. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. A man scopes from Gaza. Is he the same man who SAED_? SAED_. Bye-bye, Michael. Cheerio. Bye-bye, Farida. Habib, Habib. There was a guy who used to scope from Yemen. Bye-bye. Cheerio, Lars. Cheerio, Farida. Bye-bye to you all. He was smoking, right? What was he smoking? Tobacco? I suppose. Yeah, and to Jackson, yes. And I meant to do something, Jackson, so I'd like to, it's never too late to do something that you should have done at the beginning. I'd like to dedicate this entire show to Jackson and to Jackson's summer holiday. So I officially dedicate this show to Poetry Show. Our correspondent in Adelaide, our star performer from Adelaide. So I raise my glass in honor of Lars and your family and your summer holiday. Oh, feckin' Aegis. I have been calling you Adelaide in my mind. That is really stupid. How could I mix the two things up? And it's Melbourne I want to go to, not Adelaide. I've always wanted to go to Melbourne, not Adelaide. So there. Géraud, bonjour. From Cork, bonsoir. And also bonne nuit. Oui, je parle un peu. Pas beaucoup, mais il y a longtemps, je parlais français. Vachement bien, mais pas maintenant. Ok. À tout à l'heure. À demain.